That was funny.
You find it hilarious that a man turned evil because bullies tortured his son so much that he committed suicide. Hi there, and welcome to Movie Phone. Welcome to Jav Charles Talk Comics. I am your host, Charles Herring. I am here with my co-host, Javier Gonzalez. We have another very special guest this week for a non-bonus episode. This is a regular episode. My brother, Patrick Herring. Hi, Patrick. How are you?
Hi, Charles. I am doing well.
Excellent.
I will attempt to not sound like you. That's going to be the first thing everyone notices.
Yeah, we got on this, and Jav immediately said, "Oh my God, Patrick, you sound just like Charles." In his defense, he said, "Well, I understand why, but it's going to take me a minute." Right. So, Jav, how are you?
Hey, Charles. Hey, Patrick. I'm good. How are you guys doing? Good. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, no,
when we first got... That's not good for a...
I do that all the time, man. I'm always giving thumbs up or doing stuff with my hands, and Charles is like, this is a audio-only podcast. And I was like, yeah, but you can see me.
A matter of fact, Jav has been very adamant that he does not want to do a video version of this. He's going to lose out on that at some point because I'm going to buy him the selfie cameras. I saw a selfie thing at Lowe's, and they're on clearance. They're the little round light that you can then put your phone in a stand.
Ring light.
Oh, what?
It's called a ring light.
Thank you. I even took a picture of it. I was joking with somebody. I sent him a text and I said, I'm very much thinking about, I very much want to buy this. And she replied back, for the podcast, or do you do video stuff? I was like, no. I just kind of want it because
gotta have your selfies looking better. I understand.
That's right. I need to be well lit.
You have to grow the brand.
That's right. Yes, grow the brand. I mean, at some point, I'm going to write a bio for the website.
Sure you are.
Let's not make promises you're not going to keep.
Yeah, y'all both jumped in before I could respond with, he lied.
Oh.
You're
sorry.
Like, liar. I was going to say.
Liar.
Well, hey, Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. And before we really jump into everything, I wanted to say thank you for all the stuff you've done to date for us, for the podcast, the website, the theme music, emailing, because I think it's very obvious now. I really, really enjoy when we get emails. I get all excited when Charles easily draws me outside. But all that to say thank you for all that you've done, and thanks for joining us today.
No, you are most welcome. I'm actually glad to be here. I started listening out of just, familial support and actually do enjoy this podcast. So I'm thrilled to be on it.
Well, thank you for saying
I'm not going to follow that up with a he lied. I really mean that.
No,
for once.
Thank you.
Be the last, that'll be the last true thing I say. Everything else will just be shit talking from here out.
Clearly he knows how this works. It is all directed at Jav, just so we're clear. We don't.
No.
Nice.
We'll see.
Well, hey, Charles, why don't you tell us, there was something that precipitated your brother Patrick joining us, right? This wasn't just a random, we're kind of talking about two comic books and get Patrick on here. You told me there was a reason.
Yeah, Jav, the precipitation of this is I had been telling him to read Invincible for a long time. And
yeah.
And then what happened was he texted me and said, "Oh my God, I read Invincible." And I was like, "Cool, let's do a podcast." I'll suggest it. And he was like, "Cool." So yeah, it was finally. And so as that kind of leads into, that's one of the two comics that we're going to talk about today. That's the one I suggested, was Invincible by Kirkman. And
correct.
The other podcast we're going to talk about on the comic is, I thought I'd lean into my mistake. The other comic we're going to talk about is Exit Stage Left, the Snagglepuss Chronicles by Mark Russell, the same author of the wonderful Flintstones comic we talked about before. And Kirkman is obviously better known for his Battle Pope comic that we talked about on the first episode of season 2.
And I think he did like a zombie thing or something, maybe?
Nobody likes zombies. Oh, wait, no, that's me.
Yeah, you already got into the whole Charles is afraid of zombies thing, so we don't need to rehash that.
Sure. If that's what y'all want to make it, I'm terrified of zombies.
Mhm.
I wet myself when I read about zombies or watch zombies, so we're not doing zombies.
We know.
Now, I am curious, Patrick, had you read any Kirkman, you regular comic book, reader before this? Just a little background for you before we jump in.
Well, let's see. I started reading comic books Charles, when did you start buying comic books? Because that's when I started reading comic books. It was when Charles' back was turned and I would sneak into his room and steal his comic books. Yeah. And then when he left, I stopped reading comic books. So, basically mine were, sort of a joke, but sort of not really. I got away from it for a long time and then discovered that my local library, it's free, had access to comic books. I was like, oh, cool. So I ended up watching The Boys on TV, and I'm like, I need to read this. And the same with Invincible. I actually watched the Invincible show on Amazon, and it was like, I need to know what happens, and read the comic. And so I will say that right away, everything that Nolan says, I did hear in J.K. Simmons' voice, which made it, I think, even better.
When I reread it for this pod, I heard it all in his voice as well, because it had been a different voice in my head, but all of a sudden I could just hear it as J.K. Simmons. I should probably start putting him in when I read Spider-Man as J. Jonah Jameson too.
That's a good point. You know what? I never have done that. I've never put J.K. Simmons, right? J.K. Simmons' voice in for J. Jonah. But now that y'all say that, I didn't realize I was doing it, but I sure was when I read Invincible. I was hearing his voice in my head. That's interesting. Hey, real fast. Also, I think you mentioned this before we started rolling. You mentioned you started reading comics when Charles started reading comics and buying them. Patrick, you guys, Charles is 5 years your elder, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so that also gives us kind of a time frame. So you were fairly young, probably, than most when you started reading them regularly, which is kind of cool, But yeah.
I mean, it was looking back, it was definitely stuff I did not quite understand, and I think I paid attention more to like the Archie comics than I did the Marvel stuff. But yeah, you said I was 5 years younger. Yes, 5 and 8. So I was the surprise baby in our family. That's the way to think of it.
Yes. A funny story about the comics. About, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, my mom goes, "Oh, Patrick wanted me to he said you would take his comics." And she gave me this big stack of comics. And then I talked to Patrick. I was like, "Hey, these comics you gave me." He's like, "Yeah." She got confused with what I was saying. Those are your comics that I had.
Yeah.
And I'm doing Hobbs finger quotes, borrowed from you when I was younger. I was like, okay, cool.
I did always intend to put them back, but it was nice because you would come home and I guess count how many comics were in your Bigfoot locker.
No.
And immediately go to it was counting clearly. It wasn't that I was 7 and really terrible at trying to put things back so it didn't look like I'd been in there.
It was a mess. So I would go and get them when you were done with them and put them back. The biggest fight was trying to keep Patrick from reading my comic books while he was eating. He's like, I don't. Dad reads your comic books while I'm eating. Yes, I can't make Dad stop. So
I can't remember that.
Oh, yeah, that used to, you got upset because, Dad would sometimes read my comics and he would sit there and eat while he read my comics, and I would just try not to pay attention because I knew he was going to drip food over it, and I knew my 5-year younger brother was going to mangle them with food if he was reading them while he was eating.
That's very fair.
Yeah, it was just, and you know how important that is when you're a kid. Heck, I don't want my stuff covered in food now, but I deal with it better.
Right.
It's just like, okay, that's the cost of having children.
I know that.
Yes, everything.
Yeah,
I mean, Patrick's just literally covered in food right now.
Probably. I think my entire house is covered in a thin layer of food and snot at all times. So, that's because I have children, not because I'm gross. I mean, both are true, but still.
That would have been great, Patrick, if you were just eating right when we started the podcast, just like chowing down on something, like something really like chips or something.
I mean, let's be very professional and do this on mic. A little ASMR for everyone into that.
And that's not done for effect. That's literally how he always drinks.
I do eat burgers that way. It irritates my wife to no end.
After he blends them, I don't understand. I eat burgers in a mug. I got
Look,
used
I
to
have
this
things
when I
to
broke.
do. All right.
I started this when I had a broken jaw. Everything was liquid for a month.
It's just faster. If I don't eat quickly, the children burn down the house. So,
Stop giving them matches.
well, I mean, there's a joke about insurance fraud there somewhere that I don't actually want to make,
Yeah.
just in case in case my house actually burns down.
So, which one was first? Invincible? Obviously, Invincible came out well before Snagglepuss.
Yeah. Invincible came out. Of course, I looked this up.
I know.
Invincible came out January 2003, and much more recent, not much more, but Exit Stage Left, Snagglepuss Chronicles came out March of 2018.
That's much more recent.
Okay.
That is someone, a child born when Invincible came out would be getting their learner's permit.
True, it's just not as big a gap as sometimes when I recommend or suggest something from the 80s and you're like firmly in this millennia.
No, that's fair. That's fair. No, this is the older stuff I suggest is still from an era when the beauty of comic books have blossomed into the truest art form that they can possibly be. Whereas you reach back into where they're scrabbling in the dirt trying to prey on children's minds.
And I think you referred to them as the dark times in comics, right? When Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were working together on comics.
Clearly. Anything with Kirby is brilliant art with puerile
writing,
plotting and writing, obviously.
Yeah. No, so Invincible.
So the bingo game.
Yeah, there you go. Do y'all want to jump in? You want to jump in and get going?
I was just say, for those of you playing the bingo game at home, that was one mention of Jack Kirby.
Actually, you probably don't get it because Hav didn't call him Jack the King Kirby. Oh,
that's an extra space.
That's the great Jack Kirby.
There you go. The great. Although as much as he calls someone great, it kind of loses its meaning. If everyone's great, no one is. So we're going to talk about the great Kirkman and the great Mark Russell on this podcast.
Nice.
Who are just great.
They really are just great.
They really are, yeah.
I mean, even if you shouldn't just call everyone great, these are two great comic book writers. I personally love Invincible. What did y'all think? Patrick, you're our guest.
Oh, I thought it was fantastic. I have a whole bunch of notes on Invincible that really just take the form of sound bites because I can't actually write notes. But like I said, I watched the show and was immediately like, I have to go read this because I have to find out what happened. There's definitely differences in the show. Things we don't know, we find out much later in the show, which I actually would argue is better. But I think there's some things the comic definitely does better too. So it's kind of an interesting hit or miss. But I think, Charles, you were the one to describe it as Spider-Man with Superman's powers or something like that. And it's like stuff happens. It's rough, and he's a high school kid, and it's hard to deal with. And you mentioned in the last podcast, your non-clip show, stuff keeps coming back. It's like, oh no, that happened, and it's gonna have repercussions. In fact, the very first note I took on Invincible was so many plot lines,
and
just so many.
So many plot lines drop. Patrick, did you read all of them at some point?
I did, yes. I read the entire run.
Okay, so I've read the entire series. Hav, I don't think you have, correct?
No, I've read a fair amount, but I think I bowed out somewhere around issue 50-something.
Okay, so you've gotten deep, so that's okay. What I loved, especially since it's been a while since we only read the first 8 issues for this. But what I loved about it is having known the entire thing was going, oh my gosh, that's not coming back around for a long time, or this isn't. So either he was just putting some things in and he reached back, or some of the stuff, because it came up quicker, he was going to use it immediately. But the fleshed out that he was able to draw from without really having to retcon anything that happened before is kind of amazing from a writer standpoint.
And it shows
the
what...
one I love...
Go ahead, Patrick.
Oh, I say the one I love is that they visit a college and there's a weird thing that happens and then that's it. And that doesn't come back for a long time. Yeah. I mean, and it's just like, oh, we're going to just drop this in now.
Yes. It's amazing. And and we don't get anywhere with it, but the whole robot thing as we're going on.
Oh my God.
What they do with him and they're even dropping, there was in it a precursor to some kind of talk about that's what villains do, or this, or no, we're not villains. I can't. Oh, I meant to. It was a busy week. I meant to write this down, but foreshadowed completely part of Robot's arc, long-term arc, which was just would have caught it when I read it the first time.
Just watching it, just reading it. I haven't touched this comic book or property in written form for sure since back when it was coming out. I think I found out it was coming out, and by the time I realized Invincible was out, the first trade was already collected. So that's where kind of about the time frame when I jumped in. But even going back, I read it. I hadn't read any of the newer issues, so but now reading it this time, knowing what you know about Omni-Man at the end of this arc, right? But starting it off and knowing that and just seeing it from that perspective, it's cool. Amongst all the other things y'all already mentioned and all the plot lines dropped or little, Easter eggs or whatever you want to call them. I was going to mention Alan the Alien is just a great character that you get just a tiny, tiny slice of in this opening 8 issues. So early on, in passing, Omni-Man mentions Guardians of the Globe, right?
Yes.
Just in passing, like in one of the first few issues, and then you don't see or hear about them until the end. So, awesome.
When he brutally murders them all.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, quick synopsis. As Patrick brought up, it's basically teenage superhero gets powers. He gets his powers because he's Omni-Man's son, so he's that world's, what we think of as that world's superhero, when actually he's Zack Snyder's Superman. I tried to say Superman, I said superhero, but he's Zack Snyder. I mean, if you've watched the show, you know what happens, but it takes a little long. Didn't they do that in the show just immediately with him murdering?
Oh yeah, it was the end of the first episode.
The end of the
but
first
the thing
episode.
is, you didn't know who.
Yes. Oh, that's right. You didn't know. You saw they were murdered. Okay. So,
right.
And they kind of did that when he murdered them there. We didn't know for a brief amount of time that it was him, right?
No,
right.
It was in the same comic. It was literally.
Okay.
No, I'm going to jump ahead of you because that's one of the things I think the show did so much better. Like, we really got to meet the Guardians of the Globe in the show very first, whereas in the comic, they each got a 1-page introduction and then they were killed.
Yeah.
I mean, you could see that, okay, there's definitely a parallel. Like, that's obviously Wonder Woman. That's obviously Batman. That's obviously Green Lantern, except he swallows the stone instead of a ring, which is disgusting. But then they were killed real quickly. Oh, yeah, no, I really kind of want more of that character because that's just a weird thing. And then who killed them, which we're not revealing yet for some odd reason. But in the show,
it's just
you got to meet him.
That everyone knows. That's why we're not saying Omni-Man killed them.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. I don't know. I just didn't want to be the first one to say it.
Yeah, you didn't want to be the Hav of this podcast.
Stay in your lane, bro.
The podcast already has. The podcast already has a Hav. I'm not trying to be the Hav, but I love it was a mystery in the show. It was like we didn't find out till much later, and then it was this really powerful reveal. Where it was like, oh my God, and why? And then you find out the reason and everything. And it's just like,
Well, I liked what they did in the show, but I thought they took a different path because what they did was Omni-Man is Mark, Invincible's father. We find out his background. We find out that he's probably going to pass on his powers to his son. And we get this whole Kryptonian-ish backstory that we'll eventually find out is absolute and complete utter horseshit. Because it's all about we go and we help these planets and help them thrive and become better. And he's a hero. And in reality, he's a one-man conquering force. You find out way later. But what you're getting is you get a teenage superhero. He is in high school. He joins a team. He didn't quite join them, but he's part of the teen team. Is that which I just loved. Forget this team.
Right.
And he meets a girl who actually goes to his high school. Doesn't he meet them the first time out of costume?
Yeah, he was out flying in just his pajama pants and no shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
he helps them do something, and then he recognizes, what is her name?
Adam Eve.
Adam Eve. She has powers, and they're familiar to each other because they go to high school together. and neither one of them was wearing a mask there. She never wears a mask. She just is that superhero. No mask. Everyone knows who she is immediately if they see her again. She
Well,
doesn't
and
even
to
wear
that
glasses.
to that point, when we were doing the whole arc or reading the arc about the chemistry professor or whatever the teacher, he's a high school teacher. They show up at his house because they realize it's him, and he calls them both by their first names. He's like, "Yeah, I know it's you, Mark, and you don't even wear a mask, and Eve. So come on in." And he reveals, why he's doing everything, which is hilarious.
Oh, it
Yeah,
wasn't.
and
Actually, hold on. It wasn't hilarious.
I thought it was
Why,
funny.
why he's doing it is not hilarious.
No, not why he's doing it. Him calling. No, yes. Okay, sorry.
Okay, I just want to say the way you structured that, and he invites him in and tells him why he's doing this, which is hilarious.
I meant him, the whole, look, I can see the bottom half of your face. You don't wear a mask.
I mean, come on, Hob.
That was funny.
You find it hilarious that a man turned evil because bullies tortured his son so much that he committed suicide.
I have a weird sense
And
of
now
humor.
he's
No,
starting-
that is not funny. That is not funny. I'm sorry. I can see why the way I phrased that sounded like that. No, I meant just the whole, Clark Kent, not in this case, but the whole, hey, look, if you're going to wear a mask, do it. Or if you're not going to wear a mask, don't expect your super identity or your secret identity not to be known, Adam Eve.
Yes.
That reminds me of the line in the much maligned Green Lantern movie, which was, "I've known you since we were children. You think I'm not going to recognize you because I can't see your cheekbones?"
Yeah.
It's same idea. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, a little Harlequin half mask there as a.
Yes. Masks really don't do that much.
I
mean,
also
what
oh, sorry.
what you clearly need is a hood and grease paint across your eyes, like Arrow for the first season, and then he had a mask.
I was disappointed. I was disappointed when he had a mask. I actually really liked the hood because I was amazed that it stayed up constantly.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't show the all the bobby pins in the back, I guess, is
Well,
what,
It was actually more of a cowl because wasn't it like a heavy? It was a hood that it was almost rigid. Which the other thing is, so he's fighting. Not to bag on what is one of the best superhero TV shows ever. How can he see peripherally?
Nope. No peripheral vision.
When it's cold and I put my head up and I'm walking through a parking lot, I get my head on a swivel because I'm like, I'm gonna get run over because I can't see what I normally see.
True. No, I thought about it. Yeah, that's a very good point. I liked Arrow too, by the way. That was a great show.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to mention also before we move on to anything else, you just mentioned the name, Teen Team being just blunt, I guess, or straightforward.
Yes.
A lot of the names, like when you meet the robot, it's Robot. Robot is called Robot. He's a robot.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
Yes.
Duplicate, I thought was great.
I thought that was a brilliant name. And I also love that it immediately the first we find out about her is that she's having sex with Adam Eve's boyfriend as multiples.
Explode.
As multiples.
Yeah.
Because yes, if you're dating a duplicate, you get to have sex with multiple women.
Better the same woman, but I get you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and just a couple other names that I jotted down that were just so great. War Woman. Like, look, War Woman, she likes to fight. War Woman. And then the other one, Martian Man.
Yes. They wanted to be very clear who some of these people were.
Right.
I mean, I don't think we have to go through who War Woman was an analog for and who Martian, what was it?
Martian Man.
Martian Man. See, I was so easy. I forgot the man part in that 10 seconds. Yes, we all know who they are supposed to be.
Now, one of the Guardians of the Globe, though, that I really dig, and I liked when I read the comic way back in the early 2000s, that we see a little bit of is Immortal.
Yes.
Is he just called Immortal?
I think it's
Immortal?
the Immortal.
The Immortal? Okay. Yeah, so you get to see him. Yeah, you get introduced to all of them, and they all get offed and killed.
Surprisingly, the Immortal comes back.
Right. Surprise, surprise.
But when he's killed,
So
it's
it's not
pretty
just
cool
a clever name.
because he just rips off his head, which is, I mean, Highlander rules.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he goes to town on them. All of them, especially Immortal
Ooh.
Man. The Immortal.
I don't think he did that.
Okay, that's how you took that. I see what we're doing here. Okay. Oh, before we go on, also I wanted to keep on saying that, but I wanted to also mention Robert Kirkman writer art, the pencils anyway by Cory Walker, who I think a pretty cool job. Did a really
Yes.
great job.
Yes. Did not keep up with it. They did end up changing artists, and some people thought that would change because they just couldn't keep up with the pace of doing it. I did read that. I can't remember. There's another author, even in the I think even in these 8 issues we read.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm sorry, another artist. But yeah, the art is great. They've got some just almost iconic costumes, and I loved how they talked about that when they put him in his first costume, and they were discussing, well, I want it to be iconic. This doesn't. And the costumer is like, yeah, everybody wants an iconic costume, but no one can say what would be an iconic costume. I need more information than that. And that was the maybe come up with your name and I can work from that. Some of the changes I liked between the comic and the TV show that I thought worked really well were Mark's best friend in the comic, and you didn't get as much of it in the beginning, although he is kind of dickish. He also starts doing a lot of kind of anti-gay stuff, more in tune with what was going on in the early 2000s as it went forward, and then he comes out. And in the TV show, they say, look, he's in high school, he's gay, everybody knows it. This is 2021 when it came out. And I liked that change, because we're talking about a different time period where it is fortunately okay for someone to be who they are in high school now. And whereas it was not, I suspect it was not easy to do that in the early aughts.
Well, and you got to think too, this came out in 2003 and was probably written sometime in the late 90s and maybe even conceived in the early 90s. So, yeah. I mean, it was an interesting, I thought William, his best friend, was a really cool arc in that, especially further on through the series, because he started out so angry, and when he does come out, you're like, oh, okay, that's why, and he's not as angry anymore.
Yes, and that is a good thing. I just liked
absolutely.
I just liked the just switch. We're going to take away some of the stuff that not all of what they did with him worked as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, he
would work now.
Didn't have as much depth.
Yes. Yeah. And they just leaned into let's let him be who he was from the beginning. And I'm really looking forward to season 2 if it ever comes out.
Oh yeah.
And about the show, the show to me, I only watched it once, and quite frankly, I didn't remember the few of the differences y'all pointed out.
I only watched it once too. I'm just teasing you. Sorry, joke.
No. But the tone overall of the show, as opposed to some other properties that get adapted, whether to cartoons, animated, or live action, sometimes the tone is just off, different. Sometimes that works. They didn't do that with Invincible. The tone, it just felt like they did a really good job of just translating, not panel for panel, meaning it's a storyboard, but they did a good job of translating what was a good comic book into a really, really good animated show. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I think the thing I liked the most about both the comic and the show, but it was the kind of you're dealing with some of the realities of being a superhero, and there's even a speech later when you meet Titan, which I cannot remember was in that first 8 episodes or not. That might be later. Okay, that was later. Sorry. Well, there was a whole speech. He's like, well, why would you want to be a superhero? I mean, the bad guys are coming for you. They're going to try to kill you, but superheroes don't kill. So you're handbagged like that. And they get into that. It's like, okay, well, yeah, we're not supposed to kill anybody, but stuff happens. And the show, you definitely hear that. Like, you see civilians dying. You see. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the dark side of that, which I think is something a lot of comic book properties maybe sort of skip. It's like, yeah, I mean, sometimes people have to be killed.
A lot of the reason they skip that is because of back in the 50s when they lost their damn minds about comic books. And in fairness, some of the comic books were just, and they were directly marketed to children, were just horrifically gory, violent, and really just, oh my Lord, what are they doing? It didn't need the backlash that it got, but so they kind of shy away from it. And that's why you get a little both Marvel and DC have done more adult imprints at times where they come out, well, we're going to run this line. It doesn't tend to work, so now they kind of just have some darker titles in their regular stuff. And that's where Image and Dark Horse are allowed to kind of play in a different arena than they are, because they're not the big two, and they're not going to, if they come out with a darker, grittier comic, going to get the backlash from the public that if you let Zack Snyder write a Superman comic.
Well, and also, yes, I agree with all that. Plus, Image and Dark Horse, as opposed to DC and Marvel, the titles, comic books there are creator owned, right?
That's correct.
And except if they're licensed, like Dark Horse, I know licenses a lot of properties, but this is Kirkman's baby. I mean,
It
he can
is.
do whatever he wants to. He doesn't have editorial at Marvel or, Disney now, if you're at Marvel, telling him, no, you can't have Omni-Man kill all the Guardians of the Globe in our comic book. No, he obviously had a really tight plan of where he wanted to go, and kind of looks like he stuck to it, which is awesome.
He is just proudly proclaiming team books are garbage immediately.
Bingo card. Charles has mentioned that he doesn't like team books, so that's another one.
Go.
No, that's that's a good point. I like that.
I don't have any reason to think he doesn't like team books, other than the fact that he brutally murdered the Justice League fairly quickly in a superhero book with one main hero.
And pretty gory, and if memory serves, the comic books gets really, that was bad enough, right? Just, easily dispatching the whole Justice League analogs, and then it gets even more bloody and kind of more, because doesn't he, I'm not going to spoil it. If you haven't read this, it came out in the early 2000s. Him and his son go toe-to-toe.
Yeah. Not in the arc we did, but he beats the ever-loving snot out of his son.
And I want to say it's not too long into the series where that happens, right?
Yeah, I think it's in the next arc, because I think that's when they find out. That's when Mark, at this point, no one knows who killed, where we ended, no one knows who killed the Guardians of the Globe. But the interesting thing is, even though he did his heel turn, Hop,
I know what that means now.
he was clearly showing remorse a little bit, because his wife was talking to him about it. Just, something's wrong. I can see something's wrong. Well, all my friends just died. And she's like, no, it's more than that. You've lost friends before. There's something going on. And that all kind of turns later when they find out, and he and his son, he tells his son, and see, that was the speech, and they did the speech in the TV show. As far as I remember, if it wasn't verbatim, it took absolutely everything from the comic about how, as you age, you're going to be more and more and more like me. Your powers are going to continue to grow. You are the genetics, we're such a superior race, and it really comes in because they are that type of race. They're Nazi superheroes. You are going to continue to become like me. Your mother is a pet. Our job is to take this world over, and we will rule it, and we will bring people in, and it will be what we do, and you have to choose right now. And Mark, to his credit, chooses Earth and his mother. He also makes the comment that his mother is just like a pet to him, which...
Yeah, that's harsh.
Yeah, that was really harsh. And then they have this, I won't say an epic fight, because he beats the ever-loving crap out of his son. And he is about to kill him, and then he just tears off and flies off into space.
Yeah, the line that I love so much is, what will you even have in 500 years? And he just looks at him, you, Dad. I'd have you.
That was it.
And it's like,
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That got me.
Yeah. It got me when you repeated it right there. I was like, oh, yeah, that was what it did. That's the feels one. So just an incredible comic. Right out of the gate. It's not easy to run. I say that, but we keep reading all of these that are just incredible out of the gate. Miss Marvel, Gwenpool. I'm good with my list.
No, I was going to piggyback real fast.
I know. I'm supposed to do 3, but I'm good with that. Miss Marvel and Gwenpool are awesome. We should mention that every podcast.
There you go. And you were talking about the big fight that, of course, doesn't happen in this introductory, run that we read, but it also goes, seeing the father-son dynamic. We've talked about some comic books that have really interesting kind of I think, enthralling family dynamics, whether it's brothers or fathers and two sons, like in Starman. I had forgotten about that part, Patrick, until you mentioned it, but I remember it now. I remember until the pet thing about the mom, and it's like, ooh, oh, also you're having sex with your pet then. So what does that say about you, dude? And then, and then the whole thing with Mark saying, well, yeah,
Look.
when centuries pass, it'll still be me and you, Dad. And it's like, ooh,
Yeah. I just want to make something clear. Consent is important. So we see she's clearly consenting to what's going on with them.
no, I'm not saying that there's, yeah.
It
but
was
it's
more.
just,
It was more along the lines of her lifespan is so short. She's more like a pet. One of the greatest things I don't know if I sent it to the two of y'all at some point, talking about Chewbacca and Han, and the life disparities, because they liken Chewbacca to Han's pet, and they're like, no, really, Han is it based on his lifespan. Han is like Chewbacca's second pet.
yeah.
That he canonically, pals around the universe with while ignoring his wife, child, and grandfather back on Kashyyyk.
I think they've retconned out that's the him having a family.
Never.
Well, no, they wiped all of that canon, and pretty much. Are we looking forward to the holiday special that they're going, the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special? Because they're going
Wait,
to.
what?
The Guardians of the Galaxy are doing a holiday special on.
Oh, God.
Yes. And I swear they were talking about doing a Star Wars holiday special of some sort, but I may have just imagined.
Oh,
that
there
because
is.
it would
There's
be
a
fun.
Lego.
Well,
there's a
that's
Lego
right,
Star
there's a
Wars holiday special.
Okay, have you watched
Yeah.
that?
I have not.
Okay,
No.
neither have I. Okay.
The one that's come out, right? That's already come out, right? The holiday
Yeah,
Lego
yes,
Star Wars.
yes.
I think it's funny. It's tongue in cheek.
Have Sawyer and Audrey seen
No.
Star Wars yet?
No, not yet. I'm
Okay.
waiting till.
When are we going to do that?
He started to talk about it. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I want to get him to at least like 7 or 8,
Okay. I saw it when I was
just because I
4.
don't feel like yes, and we're gonna get into later in the podcast about our parents and their terrible choices. And
I loved that movie.
no, I'm kidding. No,
At 4.
I don't really have any. I think. Do you want to know why I'm actually waiting to show my son Star Wars? Because if he doesn't like it, I'm going to be heartbroken. That's why I'm
that's
waiting.
A fair point. I got you.
I mean, that's a 100% selfish, silly reason. But if he's going to be like, he's going to like the prequels more because of Jar Jar, I'm going to be like just crushed.
Well, no, you have to show them in the order that they came out. So we start with Star Wars. You do know that I had to finally show Corbin Star Wars because he hadn't seen it, and then it was one of those, well, I've seen parts of it, because he would like watch a little clip here and there, and I'm like, no, we got to sit down and watch this, dude. And then he loved it. So maybe his uncle should show it to him instead of his father.
Maybe, or we could all watch it together.
No, I know.
mean,
I was teasing you.
Yeah, I was not gonna jump into that.
Movie.
Oh no, it's not the same movie. It has been changed, but
No,
Well,
it has been
I
changed.
can tell you
There's added scenes and
yeah, some of them are good.
my cousin's kiddo, goddaughter. I was a little crestfallen because she'll come over and hang out, or we'll babysit her for a night or overnight. And one time, a few years ago, she was 3rd grade, 2nd grade. I was like, hey, you want to watch Star Wars? And she's like, no, I tried. Not really my thing. I was like, oh, okay. Hey, Patrick, before I forget, how old are your kiddos, Sawyer and Audrey?
the 5 and 3.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
weirds me out that you're writing that down, Huff.
Yeah.
I don't know why it weirds me out. It was just like you asked that and immediately made a note. I'm like, okay.
Because I'll forget, man.
Because-
I have
Okay.
I have like a goldfish memory, and then I'm gonna probably ask again, or like in like minutes.
That was purely to his profession. That was just something. This is an important aspect of this person I'm talking to, so I'll write that down.
No, that's fair. The reason I was worried is because Hav is a lawyer, and I've said something, and he's like, I'm just going to sue you now. I don't know why. I think that's what lawyers do. I don't know what a lawyer is. Just sad.
We do
'cause our
take notes. We
brother-in-law is a
take a lot of notes.
lawyer.
That's what they do. They take notes and use them against
okay,
you.
I can see that. Yeah, that's what I've heard.
One other thing talking about Omni-Man killing everybody, feeling remorse, and then he's talking at the funeral, and just, of course, awkward, because then I think there's a part I remember from what we read where he's giving condolences to the Aquaman analog's wife. It's like, yeah, that's weird. But also cool at the funeral, you see Savage Dragon, and I don't know a bunch of characters from Image, even back then, but you see a few other characters who I'm blanking on. Oh, Shadowhawk. You see Shadowhawk, and I forget, there's a couple other that I recognize. Like, I remember when they were in comic books for Image. I thought that was cool. Because it is, I guess, at some level, a shared universe, maybe? I don't know. I guess that rereading it, I was like, the Savage Dragon is in this universe. So that was kind of interesting.
That is cool. I don't know who that is, but that's cool.
Well, by that same token, Bill and Ted Excellent Adventure exists in that universe because someone wears a Wild Stallion's hat at some point in school.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
So canonically, Keanu Reeves exists in this universe.
Keanu Reeves exists in every universe and throughout time. Have you not seen the pictures?
Oh, no, I have, yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
He is an immortal being. Oh, I saw something recently online, and it said, when someone asks you how old you are, just say, I don't know, you kind of lose count after the first couple of centuries. And I love that so much, I actually used that on somebody this week. How old are you? Oh, I don't know. You kind of lose count after the first couple of centuries. The follow-up, because on the thread on that was, after they did it, I said, yeah, I had a friend. I said that once, and my friend immediately responded, oh, for the love of God, you are 1,262 years old. You know that.
That's pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah. So I thought that was brilliant.
What I was heard the other day was, well, I remember fire being new.
I cannot stress enough how much I love this comic book. I love, like I said, the little bits of things that keep coming back, like them immediately fighting the aliens coming from another dimension that you realize have a different time on them. And so then you go back, and then they immediately bring that back because they immediately come and grab him, Omni-Man, out of it. And the comment when he said he'd been there for 8 months, and then later when he's talking to his son, he says, yeah, I tend to round down around your mom, as in I was there for a much, much longer time than 8 months. And that comes back later when two characters get pulled in. And then there's a whole thing of what happens to them there over this long time period. So just a brilliant comic book overall.
Well, they do actually also eventually flash back and show his time. Nolan's in the other dimension.
Oh, do they? I didn't remember that. Okay.
Well, maybe they do it in the show.
Yeah,
I can't remember now.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I think it was in the show because in the show it's just exposed because he's telling the same story he told in the comic, but about how he. Yeah. Oh, he does, and I worked with the Resistance, and then they're showing him just devastating the entire planet and screaming and covered in blood, and you're just like.
Well,
yes.
We found out who he is, or who he was raised to be, and that's one of the things I liked about this too, is his art throughout it. As a
because he was
Vilrumite. Is that? It's
Vilrumite, something like that. Viltrium is how I have it written down.
Okay, then that's probably it. He has a really good arc throughout the entire thing. I truly enjoyed it.
No, it is good.
And I also love. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Patrick.
I also loved Mark's mom's reaction when he told her that his dad had been pulled into another universe. And it's like, oh, just us for dinner then.
Yes.
Just so laissez-faire, like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I also liked that he's a world-famous novelist, and he writes a book in a weekend, because that is a direct steal from certain arcs with Clark Kent. Because at some point during Superman runs, Clark Kent was a novelist as well, and he would write, he could just, because of the speed, he just goes through it, and they talk. Did they do the joke in here about he has to go buy some more keyboards? Because I swear that was a Superman joke too. It just, because he just goes through all these keyboards. He has to have a special, because he could just type so fast. Well, do we... Go ahead.
The invading aliens thing was, the invading aliens thing also, and I'm sure maybe somebody else had done the whole time difference thing, alternate dimension. If they had, I didn't remember it when I read this, and I thought that was just a cool plot device, whatever story or aspect to it that, again, set up a lot of stuff that's going to be pay off even more so later. Yeah, it's just a good. And Charles, you're right. The arc of the dad, it gets better. Yeah, not spoiling it for anybody if you want to read it, but it's again really well done and a good, like I've said before, good introduction to a brand new universe for me that sucked me in there for a good while.
I'm probably going to go back and continue to read because I've only read it all the way through once, so I'm probably going to do that again.
Something I
rereading it for this, I definitely picked up on. It was really interesting to just pick up on, like, oh yeah, that's going to come back. Oh, that's going to come back. Oh, they're setting this up now.
Yeah,
I mean,
I can't believe they started doing that here. That's amazing.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, let me ask you guys this, and I didn't Google this, and you all might know because I think y'all know Invincible way better than me. Was there ever a Guardians of the Globe comic, even a limited series that they did back then?
I don't know.
Okay, I haven't Googled it. I just didn't want to.
And Patrick
Google.
shrugged.
Yeah. Okay.
Good use of a audio medium, Patrick.
I'm here to entertain. So I did want to. There's two things I wanted to say about this. One is, if you like this, I have a recommendation, which I know is not what we do, but it's an actual book, a book with words and no pictures. So Hav, you can ignore this.
Okay, thank you.
Superpowers by Drew Hayes. I know, right? Superpowers by Drew Hayes. It's a world in which superheroes exist, and they go to college to learn how to be superheroes, and it's absolutely amazing because it is a realistic, okay, this is what powers are. You have to learn. No one knows you're a superhero when you're in college learning how to do it, and just how everything works. And it's like reading this it's like, if you like this comic, you're going to love this. It's 4 books, and they're amazing.
Cool.
And I said 2 things, but I didn't actually have 2.
Well, you mentioned 4 books, so that kind of...
There you go.
It all balances out.
Actually,
it all balances out.
I thought we were reading the first 32 issues, so I have a lot more notes, but that's okay.
I did not do that. I did want to point the one thing that I do know they made a comic book out of later on, that there's a in the background you see Science Dog poster and maybe a Science Dog comic book. And I know because I picked it up because I was fascinated when they did it. They did a little Science Dog like 2-issue thing back in late 2000s, early 2010s maybe, or sometime after Invincible had been out for a while.
All right. So that's definitely a thumbs up on Invincible. I do have a correction from our retrospective. Not a correction, an addition to our bonus episode that we just released. I added some dystopian things that I think you left off.
Oh, cool.
For the dystopian. Spider Island was dystopian.
Yeah.
As you pointed out at the time, it was a virus, and it was right in the middle of COVID when I had us read that. So that was what you're dunking on that. And by the way, Bitter Root is also dystopian.
That's right.
Yeah,
invading hell demons or
yes,
some such.
I mean, I think the U.S. as a whole is dystopian when it comes to race relations.
Yeah,
fair.
So, yeah, I just while I was editing, I was like, oh, wait a minute, listening. I'm like, hold on, we left a few off, particularly the Spider Island one, because that was one of the ones you kept bringing up when you were saying Charles and his dystopian hellscapes.
I think you were on a run there where it was like a few in a row where you
would
recommend.
Yeah, there was. Yeah. I did run through some.
Not a correction from the retrospective special episode that we did. I just realized, I think almost immediately when we got done, I don't think we mentioned Wonder Woman once. I think maybe even I mentioned that to you.
I think we mentioned it once.
Did we? Okay.
I don't know.
Well, because maybe. I enjoyed it. And it was, just, I don't know. It just was weird that it didn't come up naturally in the conversation, but I liked it, and of course George Perez did the art and the writing for that. So
I probably should have made it 10th on my list instead of Under Siege.
Speaking of dunking on someone, gosh darn it, that's on the bingo card for sure. Dunking on Under Siege, but well played.
And we also had a moment of politics in there as well. So we're up to 4 ticks right now. So
nice.
Somebody's got a bingo out there.
Awesome.
Our
I'm good.
Web creator should make a bingo card.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm keep making this joke. I'm going to have to actually make this thing now, damn it.
I will say, since I took notes on that for the retrospective, and I actually have the notes that I wrote with my top 10 list, I was like, hey, if we took notes, they could easily turn into blog posts. We could throw a blog up on the thing. So I was going to take notes on this, and literally the only note I took was about the dystopian stuff from the last podcast, because I just didn't... And I did. I enjoyed taking the notes, and I liked being able to have the stuff, but I finished reading whatever day I told Patrick that we were definitely set for this morning. I had just finished Invincible, and then I read Exit Stage Left again yesterday. So the time period I had to take notes afterwards was very, very, very truncated. I do want to talk about, we do have the website that Patrick was kind enough to put together for us. It is havandcharles.com, havandcharles.com, as presented by Patrick Herring. Do not put that in the title, although that would be funny if you did. It's presented by Patrick Herring. You can email us from there. Patrick set up a message us place on there, so it's a lot easier to find. Hav and I are both on Twitter. Hav is at Havgonzo Tweets, and I'm at Herring Red Reel. And we have a podcast Twitter account at J&C Talk Comics. J&C Talk Comics. We would love for you to like and subscribe and to come and interact with us in any of the myriad ways that you can. So,
and also because I get super excited when we get mail.
He's just so aflutter. And what's great is if we get mail, I forward it to him and then he forgets.
Yeah.
Or doesn't read it, and it's like, okay, wait, we got. I was like, dude, I sent it to you.
Yeah, it gets buried. Man, I don't even know why it's so hard to keep up with like blocking or unsubscribing to stupid stuff that you get in your personal email. Because I'll have like a wake up or at the end of a day, if I don't check email for a day, I'll have over 100 emails and 90% of it is just trash. Junk.
Oh yeah, you got to go unsubscribe from that. You also need 2 email addresses. You need one for the stuff that you want the reoccurring things on, and one for your personal and important things like bills, and because you can split those out.
Good idea.
Yes. This is your lesson in how to live a better life in the 2020s. That or throw your phone out the window.
Yeah. I mean,
I would never
fair.
do that. I love my phone. Okay. So we also read a wonderful comic book called Exit Stage Left, the Snagglepuss Chronicles, which is a lighthearted romp through the comic book universe of... Yeah. This was brilliant.
It was great, but in rereading it, I had forgotten. I know you were making a funny and being sarcastic, but as opposed to Flintstones, same author, which was kind of lighthearted and yeah, there were some serious themes. Holy crap. Exit Stage Left, the Snagglepuss Chronicles, it starts off, kind of lighthearted, but then it just keeps on getting more serious. I mean, with funny, lighthearted, just quips but man, I had forgotten how
none of the quips were lighthearted.
No, I mean you're right.
They were all deep, dark, and funny as hell.
Yeah. So, hey, Patrick, did you like it?
Canonically, according to Charles, I refused to read it. So.
Oh.
No, I did read it. No, I thought it was incredible. It was at times, as Charles said, brilliantly funny and also just brutal. And the fact that it's these, humans and anthropomorphic animals who never wore pants combined was just, incredible. And once I realized none of them wore pants, it did actually take me back a second. I was like, well, hang on. I mean,
yes.
How that working?
It's the horse. You're thinking about the horse.
Not just the horse.
Well, I know, but
no. No, that's not what I was thinking of, but now I am.
Hey, in case some folks haven't read this one, Charles, do you want to take a stab at a synopsis, or do you want me to?
The synopsis would be basically if Snagglepuss were Tennessee Williams caught up in the Red Scare, and his best friend was William Faulkner. Even though the two of them were not friends, the idea was the two of them, Huckleberry Hound and Snagglepuss, grew up together in, was it Mississippi? Or
Correct.
Okay. So they grew up in Mississippi as closeted gay men, and Snagglepuss left. Huckleberry Hound stayed there and got married and was a novelist. Snagglepuss got out, went and did regional theater for a while, and then became a world-renowned playwright. And got caught up in the Red Scare, got pulled up and refused to name names the first time he went in front of Congress, and this is where we meet him. It's that story. It's basically the story of the two people. With a play that they're putting on right now is basically about he and his friend Huckleberry Hound. So they're we don't know that yet, but they're building this play as they're going through it. Huckleberry Hound shows up in New York because his wife has gotten pictures of him with a man, and they made a deal that if he leaves and never comes back, that won't get out. And this is the setting for this story, and it is very, I can't find the words for what it is. It's brilliant. It is deep. It is skewering of that time period. Snagglepuss is witty, sad, the character, sad, kind, in just amazing ways for what he's going through. That they have all these little things. He's visiting an old man in an old folks home, which is called, I'm sorry, you're not going to see me for a minute because I took a picture of it, and it was just, because I did do a bunch of screenshots on this. This is the Fiorello LaGuardia Home for the Old and Friendless.
Wow.
Yes.
I had missed that. That is a dark.
Yeah, it really was. They did have a Nighthawks shot that I took a picture of, except that it's not from the outside with them sitting in the diner. It's three of them walking past the diner, and then they go inside, but they're a corner diner like in the Nighthawks picture. Hav, you and I have often talked about how often that they use that in things.
I was going to mention it if you weren't, but yeah,
Okay.
It's one of my notes because it's a iconic piece of art, and it's used often in comic books. Why
Yes.
not?
Well, it's used often in comic books. It's used often in movies. It's redone often in photographs. It is just something that is just out there and part of the zeitgeist. One of my favorite words, which I now know how to pronounce correctly.
I think I used to say Zeitgeist too, dude.
Yeah,
So
I know.
just,
That's fine.
know.
I'm just in case anyone listening and heard me say it that way, and they're like, "But he said zeitgeist." I did. I clearly didn't know how to pronounce it. I've been hearing it on podcasts and books on tape that I listen to in the car, and I'm like, wow, they all pronounce it that way. I guess that might be the way that it's pronounced.
No, it's all a plot to just get you to seem silly.
No one has to work hard for me to seem silly.
Charles, you mentioned him visiting the old man who,
Uh-huh.
Contextually you figure out, I think, is his dad at some
Yeah.
point. Maybe not right off the bat, but pretty soon, if not right off the bat. But yeah, I don't, you know what? You said words to describe it. It was very well done.
Yes.
It got across a lot of angst, melancholy, sadness. It was just it's a hard read. It's not one that I'm probably going to reread, but I wanted to read it. I picked it up when it came out back in 20. It was one of the few comic books I picked up and read as it came out, just not that many years ago. But yeah, it just shines a really big light. Oh, and then the other character that I wanted to point out was the character G.G. Allen, the investigating government heavy that's just trying to manipulate Snagglepuss into giving up names and turning on his friends. And you find out that she's closeted too. And they at the end, I didn't know who the analogy was for her. At the end, they do a really nice job of telling us who different analogies were. I kind of picked up on Tennessee Williams when I read it in the floppies. I didn't know about Huckleberry Hound being Faulkner until I read this collected edition. And for that character that was closeted and working for HUAC, the
Roy Cohn.
House, what?
Roy Cohn.
Yeah, Roy Cohn, working for the House on Un-American Activities Committee, and Roy Cohn was in real life was closeted and would blackmail gay people, and just that dichotomy, and just more of the same of again a hard read, but a great comic book.
I think bringing up that her and that is like, that is the best explanation I've ever heard for kind of why going after Hollywood and the Red Scare. I mean, it's insane but from a paranoid conspiracy point of view, like you create these and you're showing, unhappiness and sadness and everything else. And no, we need to show heroes. And that's why when they're going to drop the bomb, they're thinking of things and they're fighting for their country. And what I loved about that is because I wrote a paper in grad school about Soviet realism, and it's the short version of the Soviet realism is everything in the Soviet Union is wonderful and good, and therefore all art should reflect that everything is wonderful and good. And it was this hand in hand, this is exactly what they're saying, It's like, well, no, you should show how wonderful America is and how incredible America is. Otherwise, we'll lose to the communists. And it's just like, well, no, that's the exact same thing. And that's not how life works. And that was, to, as I said, the best explanation I've ever read for a reason about Hollywood and the Red Scare. That was probably more than they actually had, maybe. I don't know enough of that time period, unfortunately, about McCarthyism to speak on it. But it's like, oh, okay, that from a, paranoid conspiracy point of view makes a certain twisted logic.
It was mostly made up. It was...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It's fascism. It is, we're otherizing so we can have power. And
the justification for their power grab.
Yep.
Well, and speaking of the creativity and the Soviet realism, which I didn't know was a thing.
Yeah, that's
Patrick,
brilliant, Patrick.
So
thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with us. That made me think of the interaction between Nixon and Khrushchev towards the end of the run, where Khrushchev, Nixon is telling Khrushchev, you guys do stuff well, but you don't create anything new. We have jazz, we have the blues, we have rock and roll. And then Khrushchev's response is, yeah, but then you tear them down. The artists that you admire for rock and roll or jazz, you won't drink from the same fountain as them. And true. And then I didn't do a lot of quotes or screenshots. Snagglepuss, when he's interacting at the end with the G.G. Allen Roy Cohn character, is talking about how creativity comes from sadness. I mean, something like that. Some conflict and trials and tribulations. Just there's a lot of good stuff about why artists create what they do, what the motivations are, at least according to Snagglepuss. As by Mark Russell. And really, okay, and then let me just say this, since I'm talking real fast, just doing all this through the Snagglepuss and Huckleberry Hound in this universe, for some reason makes it that much better and that much more something. I don't know. It just was just fascinating.
G.G. Allen was talking, this is a screenshot I did take. G.G. Allen is talking to Snagglepuss and says, "You're America's greatest playwright, and I'm hoping to recruit you to our cause. In my experience, the best way to rid yourself of an enemy is to make him your friend." And Snagglepuss replies, "In my experience, an enemy is just what we call people who get in our way."
Yeah. The whole dynamic of those two, especially in her coming from where she is absolutely correct, and I think that character really does believe what she's saying. I don't think it,
Absolutely.
I mean, that always makes, I think, in my mind, the best villains.
Yes.
Is when they are truly like, no, this is why Poison Ivy is one of my favorite villains, the way they've written her now. It's like, she's like, no, the planet's dying and I want to replace everyone with trees. I'm like, yeah, it's wrong to kill all humans, but I get it.
Wait, what?
I'm just saying.
Wait, no. Circle
wrong
back.
To kill all
Hold
humans.
on.
What?
No, it's the I get
It's
it.
wrong to kill all humans?
No,
Oh, well, yeah.
I get it.
Yes. I mean, I'm saying I understand it. I'm saying I agree with it. Like, I understand you can understand where someone is coming from without saying it, agreeing it's a good thing.
Okay.
We are humans. We are developed. We can hold more than one thought in our brain at a time.
No, we can't.
Not according to some people, but yeah. We can even change our mind with presented with new and factual information.
Wait, what?
Apparently, yeah.
That's a thing that people do? Interesting.
Not some people.
Patrick, how dare you attack me?
I'm pretty sure I was just saying in general.
Okay, sorry.
Well, it's all that's going on right now after President Biden gave a speech talking about some people are this, and boy, there are a lot of people reacting to it. What is the phrase? A hit dog gonna holler?
Yeah.
Because they're losing their mind over what they're seeing this overly political speech saying democracy is good and fascism is bad. That's not overly political.
Fascism is bad. Hey, the people that tried to stop the peaceful transition of power on January 6th are fascist assholes that deserve to be prosecuted to the umpteenth degree of the law. And yeah, you're right, Charles. The people that have a problem with that, they're doing a good job of pointing themselves out for everybody.
Yep.
Just, oh, okay.
Yeah,
no.
they're standing up and going, me. He was talking about me. Yeah, we knew that, but thank you for admitting it.
Yeah. So, anyways,
I'm not a baseball fan. I just have season tickets because I really love, and a favorite team because I really love, sodas and ballpark hot dogs. It's like, no, pick your lane. Come on. If you're voting for him, okay.
Another thing I loved in that is when G.G. Allen goes to the town where to go to look at the nuclear bomb blasts, and she's talking to
Herman Kahn.
Herman Kahn, and he is explaining another mathematician who came up with set theory. I think it was he said came up with set theory, and that he had a nervous breakdown and he was committed, and it reminded me of something I had to look up, which is a introduction to thermodynamics and statistical mechanics of the perfect gas. And the opening of this textbook, this is a mathematics textbook. Ludwig Boltzmann, who spent much of his life studying statistical mechanics, died in 1906 by his own hand. Paul Ehrenfest, carrying on the work, died similarly in 1938. Now it is our time to study statistical mechanics.
I think I'd want to drop that class.
Right?
That is just one of my all-time favorite. Because I'd seen that before, and I was like, okay, I need to find that.
Yeah, wow. That's a little different than the whole look to your left, look to your right. One of those people is not going to graduate with us. This is like look to your right, look to your left. One of these people is going to die by suicide.
But die by their own hand.
Oh my gosh. Wow. No. Oh, and that character is a real life person because at the end they did have a little thing about him that I didn't know when I read it. Herman Kahn, who was who they based Dr. Strangelove in the movie Dr. Strangelove. Yeah.
One of the people they did. Oh, talk about.
And then the whole thing when she's visiting Doomtown, Population Zero, where they test the bomb with houses with mannequins in it and stuff back then. He also mentions like, yeah, we do the drills and there's the little places you can hide. Everybody's gonna die. The bombs are so big, nobody would survive. If there was a nuclear exchange or you can't get a bomb dropped on your town and you're gonna survive. It's all just to make people feel better.
Well, it's the both sides too, because they have Khrushchev talking about seeming to be insane is good for you. And then you have him basically saying that this will be America saying, no, we think we can survive a nuclear holocaust and that will make them respond. So both sides are doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, because it is crazy. Mutually assured destruction. Mm-hmm. And nobody cared. Everybody's just building more bombs. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's a lot going on in this comic book on a lot of different levels, from personal stuff to like geopolitical crap from back then. That was pretty heavy, and then we haven't even talked about the Stonewall thing. Mm-hmm. That they move in time into the 50s, but again, heart wrenching. What happens to Huckleberry Hound and his new love interest in that interaction is just. It's just a lot of stuff and well done, but oof.
Yeah,
I never thought I would read a comic or anything in any media that Huckleberry Hound is going to commit suicide.
Yeah.
It was just like, that was an image I never expected to see in my life.
Did you see how far ahead he foreshadowed that?
No.
Really? It started from the minute you met him. His father was talking about it and even had a noose hanging on his wall because he was a judge, a hang 'em high kind of judge. And just throughout the whole thing, you saw the steps, sometimes literally and figuratively, leading him to his death.
Oh, wow.
At least I did. And that was on second reading. This is the first time you read it?
Yeah, okay. I only read it once.
I kind of felt that way when I read it the first time, but you can really see down the primrose path kind of thing to someone was going to die by their own hand. And that's because they set up a bust at the Stonewall in order to catch Snagglepuss there so they could leverage him into responding better to the House on Un-American activities. And he decides not to go that night. And Huckleberry Hound gets nabbed, and he gets beat by Quick Draw McGraw, who was a cop at the time, who was his lover. And then he gets outed and arrested for deviancy, and they come to Snagglepuss and try to make a deal. We'll make all of this go away. You just play ball with us. And he was very, very much tempted to do it. He wanted, because of his friend, because he abandoned him once. He left him in town, in the Podunk, Mississippi town when he went off, and he doesn't. And then he finds out after he did it that he'd already killed himself, because he told his wife, his pretend wife, to bring Huckleberry Hound in have him live with him. They were going to live with. He was going to bring him in. We'll look after him. And she went to go get him, and he had hung himself.
And I think it's a powerful moment. Also, the reason he missed the raid was because he was introducing his wife, was called a lavender marriage, to his lover, Pablo.
Yes.
I think that was the first time they met, because she was saying, I know this is not real, but I need something. I need
you to
some
give me
part
something
of you.
from your marriage. Yes. That was beautiful.
Well, and you also
I
get
thought
at
that
the end,
was-
I think that Snagglepuss really did love her the way the way
And
he could
said,
love her.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he told her that. I do. I do love you. And bringing them together was that this is part of my life. You're both part of my. And they were both asking for that, because Pablo was asking for that too.
Yeah.
Because he's saying, I only exist at the stone wall, and that's where they were going, and he was irritated about that, and he showed up to get Pablo and said, come on, I'm taking you, and he's like, the stone wall? He's like, no, we're going somewhere else. I should have done this a long time ago. And it was great. I also loved the fact that Pablo was a communist.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So the whole time they're trying to get him to name names of communists, and he was sleeping with a communist.
Yeah.
No, some of the lines in this were just brilliant. A man can no more hide his nature than outrun his shadow. That was great. Snagglepuss got called to read to on the opening night of his play. He got called out there, and he says, missing opening night of a play is like missing the birth of your child, but coming here feels like a funeral, so I suppose it evens out. They ask him, should we expect cooperation from you this time? And he said, expectation is the midwife of disappointment. If the committee comes after you, will you be your defense? What will be your defense? And he says, the truth, most likely. And then
as someone who admittedly does not read as many comic books as y'all do, the writing in this was the best I've ever read. I was like, I don't know how it compares to anything, but it just was so incredible and so poetic and so powerful.
The writing in this is some of the best that's ever been put in a comic book.
Agree.
Yeah, I just didn't want to say that without making sure to preface it. I'm like, I've read maybe 30. So
no, this is, well, he's writing this about a screenwriter and a novelist, and he wrote the Flintstones works. You should go. Have you not read the Flintstones, Patrick?
No.
We highly recommend you go read the Flintstones.
I don't need to read it. I listen to a podcast about all these comics, and I get all the knowledge I need. It's good.
Okay. Another line that is very Flintstones-esque in some of the deeper, sadder between bowling ball and vacuum cleaner type thing. Someone saying, it's too late to do anything but admit the truth, I'm a fool. And then Snagglepuss replies, sometimes we become so preoccupied with the plot of life that we forget it's only the characters who matter.
There's so real weird. There's a ton of good lines like that in this, and I didn't take screenshots this time. I should have, but no, Charles is absolutely right, Patrick. This is a different type of comic.
At the end, which is great. He's obviously lost everything because of who he is. He doesn't have a job. He can't get a writing job. Quick Draw McGraw comes to him, and he has been found out as a gay police officer. He loses his job, but he goes to work in cartoons, and it's the Quick Draw McGraw comedy cartoon an hour, or whatever the actual name of it is. And he's suggesting that Snaggletooth come aboard. No one will care. He can come do this. And one of the things he says is, it's easy. All you need is a silly catchphrase. Oh, sweet tits of Billy. No, not like that. Something uplifting. Which I screenshot that because I just adored it. So
go ahead.
I think one of the last things, this is the last screenshot I've got that I'm going to talk about. It is reading the suicide note from Huckleberry Hound, and part of it says, after the earth is emptied of souls, everyone is owed an apology. Who is owed an apology gets one, and everyone who owes an apology gives it. And then, once everyone has made their peace as best they can, we would all disappear forever in a cloud of satisfied dust. I think that sounds rather nice, don't you? Of course, being dead, I suppose I no longer get an opinion. There's just so much pain and guilt in the world. I figured forgiveness must be part of the equation, too. And that's all I have to say. That, and please look after Huck Jr. Life is hard for a fatherless pup. Exit stage left, Huckleberry Hound.
Yeah.
Gut punch.
Yeah. Have y'all
Yeah.
have y'all watched The Good Place?
No, we know what we bowed out on it after the first season for some reason.
Patrick, have you?
I think I watched the first 2 seasons,
Okay.
maybe 3. When they went back to Earth is when I
Okay.
Stop.
Don't worry about it. Anybody who's watched The Good Place will get something else from that I won't go into. So I won't talk about it since y'all haven't watched it. But yeah, that one got me. So I absolutely loved that comic book.
Heavens to Murgatroyd.
and he finally does say that at the end.
Yeah.
Like I love they danced around because they exit stage left gets said to him a lot.
Uh-huh.
But he never says it.
Yes.
And then he says all sorts of things that are like Heavens to Murgatroyd. And he finally says it in the end. I was like, that's nice.
Sweet tits.
I was like, it was just kind of a nice, sweet. Well, and I love they also, what, this is your plan to make sure no one knew me? You're going to paint me orange and call me Snaggletooth?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. And if no one notices, we'll just, you can back to using your real name.
Yes. and that's literally is the original character was Snaggletooth and was orange.
Mm-hmm.
And then they changed it. So that's just all of this was just great. So well done. Such an odd world.
Wow, I know it was heavy, man. I don't know if there's much more to say. Go ahead.
Oh.
Patrick.
I was going to say things, but now that you said there's not much more to say.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Patrick
there was
has
just a long
things
silence.
People that are deeper than you have things to say. Huff.
What?
Well, no, because I was really going to talk about the surface, but some of the stuff I loved in it is, you had the human and cat actors on stage with the dog ears and dog muzzle nose on. And especially when he brings the one guy in to fire him, he's like, please take that off. I can't reasonably fire you with your wearing like that. Or something to that effect.
You know who that was, don't you?
Was it supposed to be Clint Eastwood?
It was supposed to be Clint Eastwood.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
Oh, nice. Okay.
He needed to go be a star.
Yes, he does a whole thing talking about actors versus stars and TV versus the stage, and that by itself is wonderful. The differences between the two. Me no words likey. So
that's what happens when you try to get fancy.
Yeah. Evidently, I'm going to take off my bow tie.
I do find it strange that was all you were wearing for this podcast. But
no, I have pants on. You just can't see below my neck.
Oh, I figured you had a second bow tie on.
Wow. That one is easier to tie.
Oh my God. When I heard that Patrick was going to be on the podcast with his brother Charles, I didn't know that we'd be talking about bow ties in different parts on Charles's body. This is awesome. Please go. Keep on going.
So
we were raised in the same house. I mean,
yes. Yes. The part I liked about that was the Clint Eastwood thing is it had to do with what you get out of a star versus what you get out of an actor, because stars, it kind of goes with what she was talking about. We need heroes and everything has to be good. The difference between the stage is he put it, the stage actor, an actor shows you how things are. A star shows you how we would like things to be.
I remember that line, and that line reminded me of the movie Nixon, believe it or not, that Oliver Stone did. There's a really poignant scene where Nixon had a couple drinks and is looking at the portrait of Kennedy and says, when they look at me, when they look at you, they look at who they want to be. When they look at me, they look at who they are. It just weirdly just reminded me of that, but that was a very cool, in this comic book, a very cool, interesting, revealing take on that, and it was awesome.
That exactly explains why that group votes for Trump, because they want to be able to do what he does.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, and you've seen, it was interesting early on when Trump was president, you had these little mini wannabe Trump politicians that got blasted out of the water because they weren't the reason Trump can do what he does is because he's a celebrity. But then it's now come, as it's further and further, now we got our Lauren Boeberts and our et cetera, who it's like, oh no, these are just certifiably batshit crazy racist fucktards. Can I say fucktard? Because I did.
You can say fucktard. Hav's not
All right.
allowed to curse, but you and I are.
Fair.
I don't know why Hav's not allowed to curse. Hav just doesn't. Hav is just. Yes.
I can curse. I say in my own lane. That's kind of Charles's thing, as we know.
Our altar attendant over there feels like it's a sin.
Right. That's exactly right.
No, Hav is just classier than we are. That's fine.
Again, how dare you attack me, sir? No. There is something I wanted to say before we. Not that we need to move on, but the art in this, the painted covers, were awesome. The alternate covers were awesome.
I have brought up before that first cover was as Snagglepuss as the Statue of Liberty is one of my all-time favorite covers of any comic book, and I really need to get a copy of that so I can frame it, because I would like to have that framed and put up, because I love that cover.
And I don't know if the cover was by Mark Feehan, but that's who did Mike Feehan, but that's who did the interior art for sure, or pencils, and yeah, just really great artists up to top to bottom on this, from the writing to the art to the coloring. It was just technically well executed as well, and beautiful to look at.
I also appreciated in the theater all the touches of, clearly the writer has been involved in theater productions, because there was definitely personality wise and stage manager and all of that. It's like, oh yeah, that's real. There's a lot of shouting and yelling and running and just utter chaos. And then, but it doesn't get on stage.
I mentioned at the front, though, one of the nice things about Snagglepuss is how kind he actually is, and you keep seeing that as the way he uplifts people around him. He tells a story early on about when he was doing regional theater, and there was a fire, and the fire chief / safety guy at the theater responded to it when he told him by running away. And then later you realize that that's the stage. Is it the stage manager or the stage? He's brought him back.
Yeah. The hippo.
Yeah.
Yeah. He
brought him, and he's using him on Broadway. And because when when it closes, he even says when the show closes after they are going to destroy Snagglepuss that he can't get a job anywhere. The only reason he has this job is Snagglepuss gave it to him.
Yeah.
And Augie, is it Augie or the young? He'd met a young writer. He brings him on as a script supervisor or a script something on the play. Mm-hmm. Then writes a novel about him, except it has a happy ending. And I just throughout these small acts of kindness that this character has, where you could have written him as a prima donna, and the choice to really make him just wonderful, someone we would truly all love to know. So, loved the comic.
Yeah,
me too.
Okay, all right. Anything anyone would like to say about either one of the comics?
I feel I took all these notes. I have Invincible. I want to just read a couple of them without any context.
Yeah.
Let me see. William doesn't want to be called Bill, which I totally get. I don't want to be called Pat.
All right, Bill.
Star Trek to the Next Generation makes an appearance. Lizard League. Massive battle. Aliens are back with magic wristwatches. Issue 16. Time skips. Mustache equals authority. Alien baby. Vulture might fight. So much blood. Hi, Mom. Please raise Dad's baby he made with an alien. Okay, thanks. Bye. More characters. Robot has a body. Don't date a civilian. Chaos! And my favorite line I think I've ever read anywhere, uttered by the immortal. When in doubt, throw them into space.
Yes, that was great.
That was a good line.
Yeah, that was great.
Which comes back later. What would superheroes even do without space?
That was the fight. That was the fight in that between the alien in space when he fights him, and he immediately attacks him, and he explains to him mentally that you have to put into there's nothing for you to throw me into. This is space. What are you doing? This is a move that you're going to smash me in. And that's, I mean, the moon is over there. So later in that same thing, he turns around and they're in the other thing. And he's saying, no, you see, you're doing it again. And then he slams him right into the moon. And he's like, oh, wow. Okay, good job.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that.
Oh, and also just a little thing is the fact that they went to Reginald Johnson High School.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
And it was Principal Winslow was their president, was their principal.
I missed the Principal Winslow. Is that
the
that's his name from
that's his
character.
Yeah, the character's name in oh God.
Family
Urkel.
Matters.
Thank you.
Matters. Yes.
Yeah, his name is Wins, I think.
Yes,
I'm probably wrong. I don't know.
No, actually, I think you're correct. Yes, but Reginald Vell
If
Johnson.
I'm wrong, send an email to havandcharles.comics@gmail.com or whatever the email address is, or go to the website at havandcharles.com and send a message and say, subject line, Patrick is wrong.
Actually,
sorry, I think we were time for the ending, so I just threw that out.
Even if you don't think Patrick is wrong, I am all on board with y'all doing and just sending emails that we will read on the next podcast about how Patrick was wrong. I would love nothing more than to have a segment of Patrick. So if Rochelle, if you're listening, because you might actually listen to this episode, feel free to send. It doesn't have to be about the podcast. You can just send an email. Patrick was wrong, and tell us what Patrick was wrong about, and I will read it because we do read. Unless you post, do not read. I'm going to read the emails on the podcast. So this can be your forum, Rochelle, to send me stuff that you want him to hear because he does listen to the podcast. On another note, Rochelle, same thing. I will not send that to. I said Rochelle again, didn't I?
Yeah.
Julie.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Julie. Now I'm speaking to you.
Oh.
If you want to do a Hav is wrong and send me an email, I will not forward that to Hav before the podcast, and then he can hear right on the podcast live while we're recording what it is that he has done wrong that is wrong, and we will have a whole new segment of Hav and Patrick are wrong on the podcast. We can make it a bi-weekly thing. It'll be great.
Yeah, I'd like to make that same offer available to Charles's wife. Oh, never mind.
Oh.
Fair enough.
Well played, sir. Well played.
Make problems in my marriage, will you?
Well,
I make my own problems in my marriage. Thank you very much.
Oh, why would that be a problem? There's nothing you're wrong
No, I
about.
don't know.
There's nothing you're wrong about that she hasn't told you.
I was gonna say if we did a podcast about all the things that I've been wrong about that Julie could tick off, it would be. We want to talk about comics, right? We don't want to just
Yeah, that's a whole separate podcast. That's not a section.
It's for the fans. Well, hey, it could end up as a spin-off podcast, but we have to start it small in a segment.
There you go.
Actually, that might be my solo podcast that I'm going to do, which is not about y'all. It's just women can send me emails about what their husbands have done that is wrong, and I will read them on a podcast.
That actually would probably get some traction, dude.
I'm just looking for a podcast that I can monetize.
There you go. After reading and talking about Exit Stage Left, Snagglepuss Chronicles, I tell you what I'm left with is I'm going to go watch something that's fun and funny to just kind of for a palate cleanser, because even though it's very good, it's such a downer and such a hard read. I don't know. Just that's what I was thinking about when we were getting done talking about that.
Yeah. So actually, I was completely blanking because we seem to be wrapped up here. I was completely blanking because we need to discuss what we're going to read in our next.
And I know what I'm going to suggest, Charles. If you need time to refresh your memory, look at something.
No, I was just trying to find a pen. I'd cleaned off my desk a little bit, and I noticed earlier when I was going to write a note down, I couldn't find a pen, and I found a pen, and it didn't work, so it's in the garbage can, so I had to find another pen.
Ah.
So,
okay.
What do you suggest we read next, Mr. Gonzalez?
I wore this T-shirt on for a reason. I'm going to suggest we go back to the very beginning, the Fantastic Four intro arc, or not arc, just stories.
Okay.
By Stan Lee and Jack the King, the Great Kirby. There's a collection on Hoopla that's the 1 through 10 issues.
Okay.
And then what I also as a bonus, if you're game, because a lot of times we'll read 12. Part of another collection is what they call now the Galactus trilogy, which is issues 48 through 50. So it'll be 13 issues total, because there's just so much that's laid out there. And hey, look, I've gone back and looked at. I don't think I've ever sat down and read issue to issue the first 10 like back to back. I think I've gone back just to look at them.
I think I've read them.
Okay,
but we will read them again. That'll be something we'll read. And I mean that kicks off the Marvel universe, so it is definitely right in the wheelhouse of the stuff we talk about. What I'm going to do is suggest you read All New Wolverine. It is when the original Wolverine is dead and X-23 takes over, because we had talked about that. And I've decided we'll read that. I will shoot you the Hoopla arc that I'm talking about, and we might see about reading the second one too, because I don't know how deep that gets, because that gets fun. I don't know if we get to Honey Badger in that, because I love her and I want to get to her. So we might read 2 arcs. Let me see where that goes. Be prepared to possibly read the second one.
cool.
As well, or go ahead and read it. We might as well. Well, you know what? If there are 2, let's just go ahead and read it. I don't know how far it gets, but we'll do a couple of deep-ish dives in these, and that will be fun, because we can see the beginning, and then we can see something, because it's not super new, but it's still very recent in comparison in the Marvel universe. So we can see where things have progressed and gone wrong or gone better.
Sounds like a plan, sir.
This will be nice. I'm glad you've picked something like this, because that's the first female character in Marvel, and we can see how differently we're going to do a whole compare and contrast on how women's superhero characters are written between when it started and now.
I bet you there's not a big difference. I bet you there's not a big difference at all. I'm going to go on record and say that.
Hey, there's gonna be a clip in our next episode from a previous episode. I have to remember to clip that out.
Hey, Patrick, since we are wrapping up, I did want to say again, thank you for everything you've done helping out with the podcast, the website, the theme music, and then also, again, very cool having you on here to talk comic books, talk Invincible, hear your banter with you and your brother. I know I enjoyed it immensely, and I can't wait to hear this when this drops. But again, thank you, Patrick. I appreciate it.
No, it was my pleasure. This was a lot of fun. I had joked when Charles first started that he should have a third person who doesn't know anything about comic books, but unfortunately we sounded too much alike to work. So I'm hoping everyone can tell the difference between the two of us. I did say I was going to do an accent for part of it, and for the rest of the podcast, I shall talk in this very bad. I'm not sure if it's French or French Canadian or whatever. Let's just cut that out. Let's pretend that didn't happen. No, this was super fun. I really do. As I said, I started listening to this because my brother did a podcast. I'll support him and listen to it. And I'm like, oh, I actually enjoy it. I'm not surprised. I enjoy my brother. I'm very grateful to have a brother that I can be friends with as an adult. It's a very wonderful thing. And the play-by-play between you two is fun. And it's a good podcast. And I do recommend it to people. If you're listening now, recommend it to your friends. Why not? What's the worst they could do? Tell you you're an idiot? Probably. But, still, recommend it to your friends.
I mean,
I'm not good at marketing.
If you're a guy recommending it to your friends, if the worst thing they're going to do is call you an idiot, they've clearly done that before, or why are you even friends with them?
True. I mean, that's a standard thing.
I mean, I call my friends, well, no, I don't have any friends, but no wife, no friends, job
you
I
live
don't
under
like.
a bridge?
No.
It's weird.
No. I have a palatial estate in a van down by the river. See, that used to be a negative. Now people are like, "You have a van down by the river?"
In this economy?
Fancy.
Man, I could dream.
Patrick, I truly appreciate you coming on. I enjoyed it. Thank you for what you do. I am serious, though, when we were talking about the theme music, which I love, but I do want to sit down with you at some point and write a theme song for this along the lines of the old school Gilligan's Island's Brady Bunch type theme songs. I think that was legitimately, when I first started out and I was singing the intro as a joke to different music, I was trying to come up with a Jav Charles theme song that we could then just record, because I thought that would be hilarious. Like I said, I love your intro music, and we can use that too. But I think a theme song, if I can come up with something funny, and I will clearly need help because I don't think I'm funny anymore.
Yes, you are. I thought you were going to suggest something like
you could have said never were. So.
Oh no, I'm not that mean. I thought you were going to suggest something like the Gary Shandling Show theme
exactly.
song.
Well, that's in that. That's
yes.
Yeah.
This is the theme to Gary Show, the opening theme to Gary Show. Gary called me up and asked if I would write his theme song. We're nearly halfway finished. How do you like it so far? This is the theme to Gary Shandling Show. The theme to Gary. That is my all-time favorite theme song.
It's up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we could this is the theme to Jav and Charles, the opening theme to Jav and Charles.
just rip it off.
I had no real idea, so I ripped off Gary's theme song. Patrick, you were going to say something.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I'm very glad you like the theme song. Since I create the opening music, since I created it, I think it's absolutely terrible, and I wince every time I listen to it. So.
Oh, no, it's good.
No, it's that artist thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a composer. Like I am a professional musician, but I'm not a composer. That's a different skill set. So, but I had fun making that because, as I told Charles, I took something he hummed randomly once and was like, let's break that apart and see what happens.
Well,
and also that's like a 10-minute long piece I chopped into like 30 seconds.
Yeah. And when I say your help, probably lyrics a little bit, and I will probably, the whole point of this is I might come up with the melody, but I'm going to want you to instrumentalize it a little bit because you can do that on a computer, right? Or
sort
you
of.
have a keyboard. You have a keyboard.
I have to peel back the lens. Everything was recorded on a mallet cat, which is a MIDI percussion instrument that looks like a xylophone.
Okay.
Nice.
Well,
yeah, because piano is for people who can play piano. I am a percussionist.
That's fine. But so that's my thing. You would be able to help me cut it together and make it. I know that.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
I'm not necessarily asking you to compose music to it, but maybe translate something I come up with, much like when I was writing the musical we were talking about. I did actually. I still know some of the melodies I came up with on that. Ooh, maybe I could harvest that. Okay. Anywho.
I was gonna say, I don't think you've mentioned that on the podcast before. So.
Oh yeah, I'd never mentioned that on the podcast. We were driving through actually England. We were on a family vacation in the year 2000. Wasn't it? The year 2000? It was the year 2000. It might have been 1999.
No, it was before 2000.
Okay, so 1999.
I think it was 98 or 99. Yeah.
Yeah. And I get bored riding around in cars. So I actually came up with an idea for a musical called Carlot the Musical. Well, I had just changed. I previously to that I had sold cars, and I really do think there's an opportunity, and no one's done it, and I think it's because there's no one that comes out of the car business and gets into writing, and they think there's just nothing there because car lots are terrible. I'm like, well, that's a good jumping off point for any kind of thing. So I literally was writing lyrics and then singing some of the songs in the back of this car driving through the English countryside. So it was just a bout of just scribble, and this, and try to do that. And Patrick was in music school at the time, or had just graduated music school. No, you're still in music school.
Yeah, I just started, really.
Yeah, and trying to get him to help me transpose it. My mom was doing the same thing because she's a musician, and we were like, okay, well, you did this. And Patrick's like, that's a minor key. You don't want to do that, or stuff like that.
Okay, so a couple things. I want to see this musical now. Abso-freaking-lutely. And Charles said literally. I don't know that you'd said literally this podcast yet. So that's another one on the bingo card.
So one of the songs is I Wish That I Were Honest. I wish that I were honest. I wish it to be true. For if I were but honest, then I'd say that I love you. Was one of the lines from it.
Nice.
Yeah, I already got a melody in mind. Yeah. Well,
I
also say
I had a melody. I couldn't come up with it right there because there is a melody, but yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I was also going to say the only downside was also in the same conversation we were talking about musicals. You're like, I also think people in musicals stop and break into song too often, and I'm like, Oh no.
Yeah, well, I've
That's
gotten
the
over
point.
that. Yeah, no, I've
The
gotten over
talking
that.
is just to get to the next song.
Well, mine was the difference between the ones that had almost no talking in between. The light opera versus musical.
Right.
So, because I
well,
don't have the chops. I don't have the chops to do a light opera or actually a musical, but still.
Opera too hard. Musical?
No,
I can knock
light,
that out. I got that.
Light opera.
What?
Yeah, there's a difference. That's the Starlight Express and Phantom of the Opera are like that. Anyway, you're saying no, Patrick? We're gonna get into it.
I mean,
I'm gonna get schooled.
no, we're not going to get into it because that's not.
Oh, it's fine. You can school me. You'll do it offline later. This is where you were wrong.
Yeah,
we're gonna get an email.
Yay.
I was assuming most of this would be cut, or maybe it's. I don't know.
No, I'm not gonna cut any of this. Why? People
right.
could. So
This portion of Jav Charles Talk Comics, where we've got a deep dive on musicals and light operas and operas, is brought to you by the Public Library. The Public Library. It's free, yo.
Just think it. You listen to this long? Fuck you.
yeah.
Well, hey, thanks everybody for listening. On that note,
So you don't, Patrick, you don't listen to this end stuff where Jav and I do talk about stuff like this?
No, I listen to most of this on like 2.5 and just kind of get through it, and just stop and rewind when my name is mentioned. So that's which I listen to 0.5. Patrick. Yes, more of that.
We really appreciate
Yes.
what you've done. Okay, so from now on, Jav, when we mention Patrick, do it like this. I also want to thank Patrick for everything he's done here on the podcast.
oh, okay, fair.
All right.
Done and done.
All right, so thank you all for listening. Thank you, Patrick, very much for being on here and all that you've done.
My pleasure.
Jav,
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. All right.
Bye.
Bye.